Hello, hello, hello. This is Minister J. I am the founder and lead servant of B2B Ministries, which stands for Born to Battle Ministries. Just a reminder that when God created each one of us, He placed everything that we would need on the inside of us in order to win, sorry about that, to defeat, to overcome, and be victorious in every battle that we face. Thus, when God created us, He created each one of us already born to battle. I thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule today to join me for this week's segment of WOW, which stands for Words of Wisdom. Today we will be coming from the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verses 21 through 23. Again, we will be coming from Matthew, chapter 6, verses 21 through 23. And before I get started with that, I'm kind of rushing, but probably a little more than I should. I encourage you to share this broadcast, this post on your social media platform that we may be able to reach more people who needs to be encouraged and who are looking for what they can hold on to and are trying to find an anchor in these rough waters that we call life. So I encourage you to share this with as many people as you can because you never know where God will meet a person or where a person is in their life and how the word will turn it around for them right in the midst of them wanting to give up, right in the midst of them wanting to throw in the towel. The word of God can turn that situation around from someone seeking to die to wanting to live. So I encourage you to share this post on your social media platforms. And the Bible reads, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. And verse 23 says, but if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? The word of God is blessed. Again, that was Matthew chapter 6, verses 21 through 23, and I read from the New King James Version. For a brief moment, while I have your attention at this time, I would like to use as a topic, what are you putting in? And you're probably thinking, well, that's a pretty unique topic to speak of. But when I thought about this scripture and it says where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It made me think about how often we allow our senses to ingest things that are not necessarily healthy for us naturally or spiritually. 9 times out of 10, when we go to the doctor, even for just a regular checkup, they're going to give us some type of advice that we should follow regarding what we put in our physical bodies or how we treat our physical bodies. Are we exercising? And if we are exercising, is it a regular schedule or is it just something that we do sometimes? What type of food are we eating? Are we eating things that contain more sodium than it should, more sugar than it should? Are we frying more food than we should or eating more fried food than what is healthy for our physical bodies? And I begin to think about our spirit man and the things that we come in contact with on a daily basis that we are ingesting into our spirits, whether we know it or not. And when I thought about that, I thought about our heart because whatever we ingest, whether it's physically or spiritually, our hearts are affected. When we go to the doctor and they're saying your cholesterol level has increased, that affects your heart. When they say your blood pressure is elevated, that affects your heart. Even if there's something that has stressed you out in your life and your anxieties are up, that stresses your heart. So these are all things that we are capable of allowing to affect our physical heart. And sometimes I think we take for granted the things that will affect our spiritual heart. But the good thing about it is when we go to the doctor and they find out these things, they take the blood work, they do the tests, the x-rays, the MRIs, the CAT scans, the PET scans, whatever it may be, in order for them to diagnose what shape our body is in. We don't always have to have had a symptom for them to do these tests because it's actually good to have an annual checkup. And during the annual checkup, they may do an EKG to see, make sure your heart is working correctly along with all the other tests. But if during those tests they find out that something is off, your numbers are too high or your numbers are too low, that's when they give us the advice. That's when they begin to say, you need to exercise on a regular basis. That's when they begin to say, you need to cut back on thus and so. Because what we have been doing is doing a detriment, a long term disservice to the lifetime of our heart. If you do anything too much, it can cause either a negative or a positive effect. But they give us the advice so that the length of our lives can be, so our lives can be lengthened, or lived longer. And the time that we are living longer, that we can live a productive life and live a prosperous life and live an enjoyable life. Because if you're sick all the time, then you're not living an enjoyable life. You may be alive, you may be functioning, or you may just be existing because your heart has reached a place of illness because of what you've done to it, and it's not functioning the way that it should. Sometimes we wonder, why are we lethargic? And we don't take into consideration that maybe we're doing too much. Maybe we're just tired and we've overworked our heart. We don't take into consideration that if we're dizzy, sometimes that can be something that we put on the inside of us that is affecting our heart. But again, the good part about it is it can be turned around in most circumstances. If we follow the advice that the doctor has given us once they've gotten those test results, and we start to exercise more, we change our diet, we don't intake so much sodium, we limit the amount of sugars that we're putting inside of us, those things will turn around the negative effects that have been going into our heart. Well, I just came to tell someone today that the same thing is possible with our spiritual heart. Although we may have ingested some things that were allowed some things to infiltrate our spirit man, our spiritual heart can still be turned around. Psalm 139:23 tells us, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. So God is our spiritual doctor. It's telling us in Psalm 139 that the author of this chapter was saying, God, you know my heart. And what I don't see, what I may be doing that's offensive to you, test me, God. Point it out to me. Show me where I have fallen short. Show me where I have messed up so that I can be pointed and aiming back into what I desire to do, which is to please you. What I desire to do, which is to worship you. What I desire to do is to make sure that I give you glory in everything that I do. But if you find any spot in me, if you find any blemish in me, point it out so that I can turn it around. Just like the doctor tells us to exercise more. God, if I need to pick up my word more, if I'm not studying enough, if maybe I'm not studying the way that you want me to study, God, show me how to do it different. Give me the plan that I need to follow, just as the doctor may give a healthy plan. God, I want to have a healthy heart plan with you. If that means I need to fast, if that means that I need to pray more, if that means that I need to go to service and get more of your word poured into me by another one of your servants, God, I want to be guilty of doing that. If I need to push back my plate and to make sure that I sacrifice more of what I do enjoy in order to get more of you, God, show me what I need to do, because I want to follow the heart plan that you set up for me in this walk of my life. Now, we know when we go to the doctor, everybody's diagnosis and everybody's plan for getting back healthy may be different. And your plan for getting back healthy may not look like mine, and mine may not look like yours. There may be some additional medication that I need to take that maybe you don't need to take the medication. You can just work out. Or maybe I need to work out more and you need to take the medication. Whatever the case may be, the plan that is given to each patient is contingent on the symptoms that that patient is having when they present to the doctor. It's also contingent on whatever the diagnosis is that the doctor finds when they perform these tests. What are you saying, minister? What I'm saying is, when we go to God and we say, God, search me and know my heart, I can't compare what God finds in my heart to what my brother or my sister may have encountered when God searched their heart. So the plan that God has for me may be different than the plan that God has for my brother or my sister. So we need to be make sure that we don't compare what the plan is that God has given me versus what he's given you in order to get my spiritual heart back lined up compared to what yours is. We as humans have a very bad habit of comparing where we are in our walk with Christ to someone else. But we have to remember that everyone grows at a different pace, everyone learns at a different pace, and believe it or not, everyone's desire to please God is not always on the same level. Hello, some people want to please God every day, and some people only want to please God when God is giving them something or they need Him for something. So we need to get away from that comparison and make sure that we follow the heart plan, the heart healthy plan that God has for us as individuals. We need to be mindful of what we are looking at, our eyes. See, people always talk about, mind your gates, mind your ear gate, your eye gate, wherever there's an orifice that something can taint what's on the inside of you. We need to make sure that we are minding those things. Our eyes, what are you looking at? What are you watching on a daily basis? What are you observing? What are you reading? Are there text messages that are coming through that can be tainting your spiritual heart? Is there something that you're reading on social media that could be tainting your spiritual heart? Is there a video that other people find funny, but when you look at it, it makes you feel some type of way because it is tainting your spiritual heart? You need to be careful what you hear. What are you listening to? Even if you're just driving up the road and there's something that is playing in the background, what are the words that can be infiltrating your spiritual heart? What is it that you're hearing that can make your spiritual heart turn from a heart of love to a heart of hate? What is it that you are hearing people speak to you? Are they gossiping about somebody else? Are they telling you something about somebody else? Because I can tell you, if they're bringing you some news about somebody else, rest assured they are taking somebody else some news about you. So be mindful of what you are listening to. Be mindful as to who you are listening to. Be mindful as to what you are ingesting through your ears. And then what are you taking in your mouth? And you're probably thinking, well, I don't eat words. I don't eat what people say. I don't eat what I watch. But this is what I think sometimes the devil or the enemy can slip in and we don't realize. Where are you eating? We need to be mindful as to where we allow food to be prepared that we ingest in our body. That's why it is so important to pray a full blessing over your food or your drink before you ingest it. Because where you eat, where it's been prepared and where you are ingesting can affect your spiritual heart. You don't know when you go to a restaurant and a person serves you if they are worshiping another entity that's not God. You don't know if when they look at you and they're bringing your food out, if they place some type of spiritual hex over what they are bringing to you. You don't know what the person that's handing you the bag out of the drive-through window may have had in their spirit before it was brought to you, and you're ingesting that. And you're probably thinking, well, minister, that's big. You're taking it a little bit too far. I don't believe spirits could jump on the food. That is how the enemy creeps in unawares. The Bible tells us to be mindful of the enemy in unaware situations. Times when we think that the enemy is not there, times that seem casual, things that we think are just normal. Those are the times that if we are not spiritually grounded and if we are not lined up to where we can discern the spirit of God and the spirit of another entity as well, then the enemy can creep in. So be mindful of where you eat. Be mindful of what you eat. Be mindful of who prepared the food. Be mindful of where the food was prepared. And if there's nothing you can do to change where the food came from, make sure that you intentionally pray over that food before you ingest it in your body, because you will be surprised how that would affect your spiritual heart. Even your nose. And now you're thinking, okay, look now, minister, you're going just a little too far. Now you're talking about my nose. What do my smells have to do with it? We are in an age when aromatic therapy has become popular, whether it's a candle, a form of incense, a sage burning, whatever it may be. We as a people have become a culture that is into aromatic things, whether you're putting it in your bath or their bath bombs that you're relaxing with, candles around the tub, whatever the case may be. So those are things that we are smelling. And when we are smelling those things, we are ingesting that scent. So, what I'm saying is be mindful of the type of incense or candles or aromatherapy that you are using. What other type of chemicals are you smelling in your regular everyday environment? Just be mindful. And if you feel that it touches your spiritual heart and it does not feel like it's something that God would be approval of inwardly, pray about it. Make sure that in your prayer and meditation time that you take that spirit to God so that even though you smelled it, the enemy does not have the power to infiltrate your spiritual heart by what you have been smelling. And then lastly, our skin, our hands, our pores, our eyes, our head, everything that has skin covering it. We need to be mindful as to who and what is touching us. What are you allowing to touch your physical body? Where do you get your hair cut? Who does your hair? Who's hugging on you? Who's giving you dap or even a handshake? When we come in contact with another entity, another person, another physical being, their spirit can infiltrate our pores. I know you're thinking, oh Lord, minister done lost his mind. He's talking about all these infiltrations and all these things going in our pores. But that's where we fall short. When the enemy knows that we are ignorant to his devices and we are ignorant to how he can infiltrate our being, those are the very points that he's going to make sure that he infiltrates, because he does not see that we have a barrier up to block him from doing that, because we had no idea that he would come that way. So I just want to encourage someone to know that whatever you intake can whatever you intake can alter your passion, your purpose, and even your desires to please God. You'll start to wonder, why don't I want to read my Bible no more? Why don't I want to go to church no more? Why don't I want to hear the gospel music anymore? Why don't I want to hear anything about God anymore? I didn't used to be like that. And it will be because something that you intook, either through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, your skin, or your pores, has altered your spiritual heart. And when you find that those things have taken place, I encourage you to go back to the chief doctor, go back to God, seek Him, and ask Him what you need to do to get your heart, your spiritual heart, back to a place of being in optimal health with Him. In essence, what I'm saying is just be careful what you are putting in. So that is our words of wisdom for this Wednesday. I do hope that it was an encouragement to someone, or at least allows you to leave away from this post being more thoughtful as to what you allow to be intaken into your body and how it can affect your spiritual heart. Again, this was our segment of words of wisdom for this Wednesday. Before we leave today, of course, I want to say our normal daily mantra, or I encourage you to make it a part of your mantra. There is absolutely nothing that will happen to me this day that God and I together cannot handle. Again, there is absolutely nothing that will happen to me this day that God and I together cannot handle. I want to encourage you to remember that He will combine His super with your natural in order to overcome any obstacle that you may face. Perhaps you have a prayer request that you would like for us to pray with you about, and of course we will be more than honored to do so. So I would encourage you to send our prayer request into prayers at borntobattle.com. You can email them to prayers at borntobattle.com, or feel free to text them to 469 704 8549. Again, that is 469 704 8549. And perhaps you feel led to be a blessing to the ministry. You know, the Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes, the 10th chapter, that money answereth all things. And if you would like to sow into the ministry, our cash app is there on the screen. It is dollar sign Born to Battle Ministry. Again, that's $ born the number two battle ministry. And all money that will be sown into the ministry will help us to be able to reach more people. We do have a grief support group that's kicking off next month, and we definitely want to be able to maneuver so that people can be blessed and that they can see the benefits of having a relationship with God, as well as being able to commune with each other to help through this life that we have to have grief in at sometimes. At some point, we all lose someone and we lose some things. And sometimes we don't take the necessary time to grieve, or maybe, we don't have the finances to go to counselors or things like that. So we want to make this free support group available to anyone that can benefit from it. Again, it'll be kicking off in September. On September 9th. And just be on the lookout. The grief support group will be known as Living Grief Out Loud, because there's no need in us being ashamed when we have grief. There's no need in us always apologizing every time something happens that causes us to mourn or to cry or to weep in a memory. So often we find ourselves apologizing because we want to make someone else feel comfortable in that moment. But we should not have to do that. And so, again, the grief support group is going to be Living Grief Out Loud. And if you'd like to be a blessing to the ministry in order to help that grow and to continue to allow that to be free for anyone that would like to participate, feel free to sow into the ministry at born the number two battle ministry. Again, this is Minister J. I thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join with me for this week's Words of Wisdom Wednesday. Until next time, have a blessed week. Know that Minister J loves you with the love of the Lord, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Be blessed.